So welcome to the Church of Jesus Christ. There's a song out that has I don't think it's the name of the song, but it has a phrase in it that says this: these beautiful things that I've got. Put that on shelf number 2 and just keep that in the back of your mind for a moment, or place it, better yet, in your heart, wherever you store up as we go forward with this meeting. Please do that. Second thing I want you to put on the shelf number 2, if you would, is a simple phrase that says, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Okay, so just keep those thoughts. These beautiful things that I've got, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. 5 years ago, as you know, you've lived with this, or lived with us, specifically involving my daughter Aubrey, or Candace and my daughter Aubrey, Courtney and Kylie's sister, and certainly Aaron's wife, and one that we adore. She received a shocking diagnosis that all of us have navigated through, if that's a fair way to say that. And when you're in such a battle, I think everyone understands that that's exactly what you have to do, is navigate through it at different times. And so her diagnosis was cancer. It was diagnosed miraculously. It should not have been discovered or uncovered, dependent on how someone looks at something like this. And yet it was. And we counted that first miracle, that God was in this situation, because it was uncovered. We handled it in spiritual terms. We handled it in natural terms. We handled it, or she handled it, in medical terms. And so all of us had our own personal process, as it should be. On Thursday morning, she went to her physician, and she still has a few more meetings and consultations, but we awaited this meeting to find out what we believed we would hear, and Aubrey received the all clear on Thursday morning. And we are, to say celebrating is just not accurate. It doesn't cover the feeling we have. But I listened to that song this morning, and I wondered, was I able to sing about the goodness of God 5 years ago? Was I able to sing about the goodness of God 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago? I hope so, but I will not make that claim, as it's for God to assess. But I hope that that was the case. I never put that on anybody. Each of us have to go through our situations differently. Each of us have to go through whatever it is that we're working through individually, meaning that no two people react to the same type of thing the same. I like to wander mentally, or intellectually. I'm trying to think, so it doesn't sound like he's lost himself. I like to wander, though, with thoughts. And one of my thoughts that I'm always entertained by is, do we hear things so differently? Is my voice different to Brother Michael than it is to Sister Patty, just based on our hearing? Do I look different? Whatever that might be. And I'm hoping, if it is, someone sees me with a full head of dark hair. But I don't think we see that differently. But I wonder if it's just tones, and so perception is at question, is in question. Aubrey, who I've already addressed today and testified to the glory of God for this beautiful all clear. But Aubrey taught me a strategy at one point when I was working with someone, and this individual that I was sitting with and trying to work through something with was struggling with. I was struggling with where they were. Were they present with me or not? Had there been some break where they weren't quite there? And she taught me a strategy called grounding. Now, grounding is an attempt to identify how and what one is focused on. So you ask these very simple questions. Each each person who introduces this strategy, I'm sure does it differently. But what you're asking them is literally, what are you seeing right now? What are you looking at? What are you hearing right now? What are you feeling right now? Not just emotionally, what are you feeling? I feel cold. I feel hot. I mean, truly, what are you feeling? And the whole idea of grounding is finding out where they are, because they may not be present with you. They may have some break and they're not present with you. What they're hearing, are they hearing things that aren't there, but certainly there to them? So it's all a challenge. It's all a focus on their perception. These beautiful things that I've got is a question on whether or not the things that are before you, are they seen as beautiful? And then the second thing I asked you to think on and continue to think on throughout is that beauty is individual. It's in the eye, as it says, of the beholder. Do you and I see the same thing as beautiful or not? Our theme today, and it could have been a lot of things, by the way, but our theme today is, what's the difference? And that question can come, as I just asked it, a little bit cynical, a little bit sarcastic. What's the difference? Or it can truly be an inquiry. What's the difference? It's all in the eye of the beholder. And what could have been the theme this morning is the answer to that question. What's the difference? And the answer is every single thing is the difference. But we'll stay with what's the difference because it's more clever. To kind of put it simply, it's maybe a little more fun and easier to remember. What's the difference? I'm going to 1 Corinthians 17 through 31. I'm just not certain that I'm going to dig through all of those verses. We'll see. I'll see how it feels as I start. This what I call a paragraph may not even be something that everyone categorizes as a paragraph, but I believe it's introduced and it's summarized in those 14 verses or 15 verses, I think it is. I want you to consider how it starts, but we're aiming for truly just a couple verses, but some are introductory and I think they're important. So Paul says that Christ sent me not to baptize. Listen to that. Christ sent me not to baptize. And he clarified it saying, but to preach the gospel. Baptism is the result of an action, the action being preaching the gospel. The purpose being preaching the gospel. The calling being preaching the gospel. God did not send me to pass communion, but to preach the gospel. God did not send me to anoint, but to preach the gospel. That's what Paul's saying. Not to baptize, but to tell everybody about Jesus Christ. He goes on to say, so that he would not have any credit or acknowledgement, he said, not with wisdom of words, lest the cross of Christ should be made of none effect. For the preaching of the cross, let me take a step back. He's going to clarify why not the preaching of the cross, in that it have none effect, because the sermon is in the ear of the listener, and he's going to prove that out to you. For the preaching of the cross to them that perish, foolishness. See, so two people are sitting in the same pew. One doesn't hear the message, the other does. One doesn't embrace the message, the other does. One is not drawn to Jesus Christ, the other is. And that's not a judgment, that's just the fact. To them that perish or don't receive, it's heard as foolishness. But unto us which are the saved, it is the power of God. One hears foolishness, one hears the voice of God. For it's written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. I cannot twist arms, is what Paul's saying. I cannot force anyone to receive this. So where is the wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of the world? Asked Paul. Hath not God made foolish the wisdom of this world? God is over everything. That's the introduction. That's what Paul is introducing to us, that we all have choice. In this message, in this moment, in this sentence I'm saying right now, each of you are receiving it differently. I said earlier that I love to think about does my voice sound different to each of you? Let's ask it differently. Does my message sound different to each one of you? We receive it through our own filters. Those filters began to establish, to develop, if you will, long ago. Long before we were even aware that filters were developing. And so then we put our ears up that have these filters. We put our eyes towards someone that have these filters. The same eyes that saw something very horrible maybe are now looking at something very beautiful and have to tell the difference between it. Hope you're following. So I trust that the message will be received. And not because of me, but because of God. I trust that if this is God's message, that it will be received. Going on, for after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. What that means is we speak of things that are of God, that are of spirituality, that have the power to affect and change lives. But we cannot be responsible for the hearer. Only you can factor through and decide what, after sifting through the message, what stays with you and what doesn't. Goes on to say, specifically to his time, Paul says this, for the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified. Unto the Jews a stumbling block, unto the Greeks foolishness. I would ask this morning, unto you what? Each of you, unto you what? What is the message of Jesus Christ? He clarifies that I hope you embrace. Unto them which are the called, both Jews and Greeks. To acknowledge some of you, both those in Pennsylvania and those in Michigan, those in Scotland and those in Arizona. Meaning it doesn't matter. He's just pointing out his world when he says both Jews and Greeks. But unto them which are called, Christ the power of God and the wisdom of God. You are they who speak this language. The language being Jesus Christ, the language being spirituality, the language being salvation. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men. The weakness of God is stronger than men. God in his least is greater than man in his best, is all that means. He is God. He is the creator. We are the created. He is the Father. We are the children. I've told you my story too many times, but I have sought diligently to find a good place to share love, compassion, forgiveness, honor, respect for my father, for my parents, for those before me. That's how we address God. For the unbeliever, I would hope they would do the same, to seek with generosity who God is. Can't tell you the people in my life right now who have told me with great honesty and with apology in their voice, apologetic statements, they don't believe in God. And I say that because they often say, I don't mean this disrespectfully to you. And I never take it with insult or I never look, or judgment, more importantly. I understand that we all hear differently, see differently based upon those filters. And so I continue to preach Christ to them, sometimes with words, hopefully more often with actions. Now we go to the verses I wanted to introduce to you today. Reading again what I hope you've stored on your shelf. I made that request. These beautiful things that I've got. And beauty, as I've repeated a few times, is in the eye of the beholder. We go to verse 27. God hath chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. These beautiful things that I've got. God hath chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. God doesn't need the best to prove he can take the least and make it great. Understand there is, as we often say, there are layers and layers and layers in the Word of God. There is the simple, I say that and it sounds almost insulting. There is the base interpretation. There is the meaning that is intended for the first interpretation of a verse. Then we have to dig and pull layers off and try to go lower. Could it be that I am one of those weak things of the world to confound things which are mighty? I may never become mighty, but God can use me in this state to do his work. So also understand, things have many definitions here, many ways to apply these verses. Going on, 28, and God hath chosen the base things of the world, and the things which are despised hath God chosen, and the things which are not, to bring to naught things that are. For those of you wondering, this is poetry at its finest. This is beautiful, romantic wanderings of Paul in his spiritual mind. He's writing to us this eloquence that we have to fit together to understand. These beautiful things that I've got, that I hold true to me. Each of us have to define what those things are. Sometimes we have to lose something, or at least have the threat to lose something, to truly see the beauty in those things that I've got. Our family has been challenged for years now to remember a time before this diagnosis, to remember and think back, did I appreciate? And then with that diagnosis, it caused me to look at Courtney, my eldest, differently. It caused me to look at Kylie, my youngest, differently. It caused me to look at the extensions of them, their spouses, those who have children, their children, their lives, their choices, their essence. Do I appreciate? And then that brought me to you and see you differently and see the beauty in each one of you. What's the difference? Every single thing is the difference. Because when we see differently through spiritual eyes, the difference is significant. It's life-changing. Remember what Paul said, I preach this gospel and some see it, some hear it, some feel it, some are present, some are grounded in the message of Jesus Christ. Asking that same grounding game or questions to others who hear it, it's nothing, it's foolishness, it's fairy tale. One time, just vernacularly, I said this great story that I read, speaking of something I believe from the Old Testament. And at some point, without interruption, but later, Sister Patty said, it's not just a story, it's the truth. Being married as long as I have been, I receive good counsel well from women when they correct me. I found myself corrected, accepted it all. Absolutely. It's not just a story, but there are those that you would tell the account of Moses to, the account of David to, the account of Paul as we're reading today, the account of Jesus Christ, the Savior to, and they may not receive it as truth, but as a story, as foolishness. And so I've weighed my words since Sister Patty said that to me. I've weighed my presentations because I just might be speaking to someone who's only hearing it as a story. And I honor that each of us see and hear things differently. One more verse away from. I'm going to go to Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, the 11th verse, and that will be all that I'm going to read to you today. Keeping in mind the phrase, these beautiful things that I've got. Keeping in mind the phrase, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Ecclesiastes 3:11 starts with this, and I'm only going to read the start of this verse because that's what applies to this message. Speaking of God, using the pronoun he hath made everything beautiful. And then it offers clarification. In his time. July 27th, 2025 was his time to confirm to our family the beauty of the walk we've been on. He hath made everything beautiful in his time. My time was 5 years and a day before. I didn't want any of this. Speaking foolishness. Certainly not speaking spiritually. Speaking as a father and not as a servant and child of God. And that's the inner battle that each of us have. Who am I representing? My own foolishness or God's wisdom? And so I know today, differently than I knew on July 26th, 2025, that he hath made everything beautiful in his time. Faith, trust are the power words that we live by. But they are without power if we don't activate them, if we don't live them, if we don't utilize them, if we don't put them to use. When I think that if I can just turn over everything, truly turn over all control, all question, all doubt to God, and truly allow him to do all that he's going to do anyway. The assertion that I would allow anything is how we think. But in order to get through this stubbornness, in order to get through this natural man and embrace the spiritual man, I do have to let God. When I do, I find myself completely and differently linked to him. Maybe even finally useful, pliable to God. I don't use myself as an example that I might shine. I use myself as the example so that you see my weakness. You might feel validated in that and even hide behind my confessions. and just whispered to you and God, me too. But all of us land in the same place. All of us have the same result, linked to God. Because maybe when he says the phrase, these beautiful things that I've got, you are named among those things. And would he permit I would be named among those beautiful things that he has? Our message today is, what's the difference? And we answer that question with every single thing is the difference. May the Lord bless you in every way that you might see the beauty surrounding you. And in seeing that beauty, that you see God's fingerprints on all of that.